The San Francisco 49ers lose a football game, and we're all here to break it down. Me and Steph Sanchez. Stick around after this. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. The San Francisco 49ers lose to the Minnesota Vikings, and it's time to crack each other's heads open and feast on the goo inside. But before that, Steph, how you feeling?
Feast on the goo inside. That's crazy.
It's a Simpsons reference.
Okay, yeah. Okay. He's the encyclopedia of Simpsons.
Yeah. And Rob knows it. Rob knows what I'm getting at. It's an
audio clip, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it's an episode where Kent Brockman asked a professor, is it time for our viewers to crack each other's heads open and feast on the goo inside? And the professor goes, yes, I would, Kent. Like he said, yeah, like but that's how we are, right? Like one loss literally means the sky is falling. And for the people that believe the San Francisco 49ers were going undefeated, this loss has to really stick in your craw and have you crestfallen, right, Steph?
RIP 17-0 season for the 49ers. Hey, I told you, Jay, like there's something about playing in Minnesota that's just so weird. Like as soon as this game started, I was just like, man, like I didn't want to think that something like this would happen, but it definitely felt like just one of those days where it was going to be a weird game. But it wasn't just weird. Like it's not just the Minnesota effect. Like obviously the 49ers did a lot of things wrong in this game to have the outcome that they did. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because to me, it wasn't just any one thing. And I think in a loss, everyone tries to find that one thing, that low-hanging fruit to blame. It's never just one thing, people. It's always a combination of a lot of little things that lead up to the big thing, which is the loss. But yeah, that's what we'll get to here.
Yeah, and look, it took an entire team to fuck that game up. Sorry, guys. I know that you're probably like, you got your kids around, but it took an entire team to blow that one. Yeah, no, don't bleep it out, Rob. I mean, well, you have to for the audio people, but my God, man. Look, regardless of whatever happens, I think there's a lot of discussions that need to be had about how this game went. And I think what's kind of weird, and you talked about it being in Minnesota, that game mirrored the Monday Night Football game from last year so much in so many different ways.
Off too,
right?
And score.
And yeah, there was no crazy play at the half that ended up in a touchdown, but Sam Darnold's running by himself for 20 yards to set up a field goal at the end of the half, and mistake after mistake, and just there's a lot to talk about, right? And there's no one reason that this game happened this way. None. I think, again, this is one game out of 17. I have a tough time for sitting there like, man, season's over. But Dallas lost, Philly lost, Detroit lost, the Rams are 0-2, the Ravens are 0-2. It's week 2. And that's where if you came to this podcast hoping for panic and outrage, this might not be the one for you. Sure, there's things that we objectively have to call out. I think Brock Purdy held the ball way too long in this game, many times. I think the offensive line got its ass whipped many times in this game. I think the defense had many miscommunications. I think Kyle Shanahan had some questionable play calls. I do like the fourth down aggressiveness. But we have to talk about this game objectively without causing a sense of outrage that the season is over, even if, and I guess we should start here, Deebo Samuel is going to be out for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's just like the one thing we all said at the end of the game was Kyle was like, oh, well, no injuries. We were like, oh, well, could be worse. But that news is absolutely not good. Steph, what do you think?
I think it's just the accumulation of the key injuries. Like the 49ers only have 4 big injuries that we're tracking right now. Obviously, Dre Greenlaw, Hufanga, Christian McCaffrey, and now Deebo. It's not a lot, right? Like you look at the Rams, you're like, oh, they're hurting. But it's just the the magnitude of these injuries, of the guys they're going to be missing for the next couple of weeks. I think that's my concern. And so now you have two key guys on both sides of the ball not out there. And we've seen it in the past with Deebo that things could get very weird when he's not there. You
Mhm.
know, like it does have a domino effect. And I think in week 2, we saw a little bit of the domino effect of Christian McCaffrey not being there as well. So now both of those guys being out at the same time these next couple of weeks is definitely going to hurt this offense. An offense that, quite frankly, doesn't even look like it's began clicking yet in
Right.
this season. They're off to a slow start, right?
Mhm.
Some guys are going to have to step up, and I think
Yes.
that's usually what it comes down to when it comes to these injuries. The issue in the past has been that like no one can step up to the level that Deebo Samuel gives you, right? Or Christian
Mhm.
McCaffrey can give you. You know, Ray McLeod, like not executing plays how they're supposed to, or Kyle Shanahan having Juwan Jennings in the backfield, like just weird stuff. You know what I want to see, Jay? I want to see Jacob Cowing in this game.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be some time before we see Ricky Pearsall, so I
Mhm.
can't wait for that. But in the meantime, like let's get Jacob Cowing involved in this game. Let's get
Mhm.
more Jordan Mason. I think Jordan Mason had like 20 carries in this game,
20. He should have had
100
25.
yards. He should have had more. He should have had more. And I think when we talk about this game coming up, and I'm sure we'll get to the Rams towards the end of the show, but I want to see more Jordan Mason, man, because he has shown that he can handle it.
Mhm.
He can handle it. I think that's one guy that's going to make the loss of McCaffrey and Deebo a little bit easier on this offense. And it's going to help them just get through these games, in these
Mhm.
next couple of weeks. So I do want to see some adjustments from Kyle Shanahan, of course, but also like it's dependent on the players to
Mhm.
execute. Right. And so let's get Jacob Cowing, like just even if he doesn't know the full playbook, let's get him like 10 plays that he knows without a doubt and
Mhm.
and get him out there for those, see what he can do. Because I think speed would also be handy for this offense too. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are going to need to get more involved, and hopefully that's what we see coming up.
Yeah, and look, it's easy to look at this game and say these are things that we should be concerned about moving forward. But it always felt like this game had to play out this way for the Vikings to win. And we have many instances under Kyle Shanahan in which you look at a game and you have no idea how they could play that bad. So let's start in 2019 against the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, letdown game against the New Orleans Saints. Okay, you should have won that game. 2020, how many instances of you losing to the Eagles, you losing to the Miami Dolphins, the Brian Allen game. Let's look at last season, Cleveland, Minnesota. Um, it's never an instance of the 49ers absolutely getting dog walked by other teams. It's, man, you guys really shot yourself in the foot like over and over and over and over. And it took all of those things for the 49ers to lose this game. By the way, without Fred Warner, this game is
Oh,
even
dude,
grosser.
it could have been a blowout without Fred Warner, like easily,
Easily.
easily.
Sam Darnold was definitely trying his best to give the game away because he's Sam Darnold. And then Sam Darnold had a game in which it's literally the story of his career. 2 sparkling throws and a bunch of what on earth was that? When you look at the throw to Justin Jefferson, and ooh, we're gonna talk about that one too. The back shoulder throw to Naylor on 3rd down. That's Sam Darnold, but he's gonna try to give you the ball. He's gonna try to give you the ball. He wants you to have it. He wants you to take it. But we do have to look at this game as something that kind of has happened. But if you're looking at the track record of this team, you're looking at a team that eventually in November and December is when they really peak. I think 2019 was the only time that they really just ran through. They ran through everybody early on. every other year you can point to games that you're just like, damn it, they should have had this one. Sure, we can look at injuries and say that and this, but if the 49ers just protect the football, don't miscommunicate on touchdown throws over their head, no block punts, this game is completely different. Even off that black punt, they only allowed 3 points. The defense really held up right there. But Dazzle with the super chat, Deebo injury might be a good thing. It'll force Kyle Shanahan not to lean on Deebo and actually use his all-pro tight end and wide receiver. Steph, I don't know how you can operate your offense with only George Kittle and only Brandon Ayuk when there's so many teams that wish they had either or both of those guys. That's a part that I definitely am leaning into, and I don't feel great about, because yes, Deebo and CMC are difference makers. Yes, Christian McCaffrey's gravity opens things up. You still have 2 all-pros. You have the best at his position probably that we can think of right now in tight end. Shout out to Travis Kelce. You had like 1 more yard than me this week. And then Brandon Ayuk, who was open, and I think we should talk about that as well too. I just, so many teams would kill to just have those 2 guys. And why does this offense always feel like it's not working or not clicking? Some of that has to do with Brock Purdy holding the football a long time.
Yeah, it's so far through the first 2 weeks of the season, that has definitely been the case. But this has been a thing, like when Deebo's been out, that this team looks unrecognizable. And that's
Right.
mind-boggling to me, because they do have so much talent. And then now even we can't even use like Christian McCaffrey not being there as an excuse, because there was a point in time where this team didn't have Christian McCaffrey and they were still looking good and they were still beating teams. So I don't like that as an excuse, especially because you have so many stars on this team. And look, you had the Vikings, Sam Darnold moving down the field without Justin Jefferson, without Jordan Addison on the field. Like they found a way, right? So the 49ers have to find a way. And at the end of the day, though, like I said, it comes down to the execution from certain players. It comes down to Kyle Shanahan not overthinking things, not trying to get cute with what he's trying to do. And so I think you stick to your principles. Like I said, you continue to run the football with Jordan Mason, who's been doing a hell of a job with it. And maybe you try to mix it up with some things that defenses haven't seen before from your team, right? I think, and of course, like involving George Kittle, it was nice to see George Kittle, more involved in this game. I hope that does carry over in the coming weeks. And then also Brandon Ayuk, of course, like he was getting open in this game, and I don't really know why he wasn't as targeted as he should have been. I think, again, it's probably a number of different reasons, not just any one thing. But I think there's this narrative out there that Brandon Ayuk wasn't getting open, and like freaking Brandon Ayuk holding out, all off season, and he can't separate because he's still rusty. He was getting open in this game.
Yeah.
And we're seeing some of the clips here on the screen. I think even just the touchdown, right? Like that was there. He was open.
The ball has to be out earlier.
If that ball is thrown earlier, which I understand why he didn't throw it. I think there was a defender hovering underneath that one that he didn't feel comfortable throwing in. Once that defender came up, that's when he threw it. It was too late at that point. But like we'd be talking about Brandon Ayuk totally differently, or at least everyone else would, had that play happened and had he gotten the ball more when he was open. So yeah, the narratives out there are pretty crazy. Like I said, it isn't just any one thing. I think Brock Purdy holding the ball a lot was a huge thing. And, I did talk about this. I had a thread on my Twitter, and I'll just kind of like summarize it here.
Yep. I like it. Talk about it.
And I want to add more context to it, because I think people were even seeing that and kind of like misinterpreting what it was. So I'll just say, like, Brock Purdy, 4th most sacked quarterback, right? Behind only Gardner Minshew, Caleb Williams, Deshaun Watson, struggling quarterbacks, right now. But Steph, you told me the offensive line looked better. It does. I'm aware of how many pressures they gave up in this game. Trent Williams, obviously on the short week, and him holding out, maybe he was a little rusty in this one, and also heard it was pretty hot on the field.
It was so hot. It was so hot, Steph. Let me, Trent Williams. Look.
Oh, you were down there? Right.
No, well, but just we love you, Trent.
Look. Okay,
we love you, Trent. But
we love Trent.
We love you, Trent.
And I'm not absolving.
4 pressures is crazy. That's
That
crazy.
is crazy.
A
No, that's
quarterback
crazy.
hit, and a sack. That's crazy. Trent, you got to play better. The entire line has to play better. But
Yes.
I set my watch. I set it to Trent being 0 or 1. Not that
Yeah,
many.
yeah. So I'm not absolving Trent of any blame, right? And I'm not absolving the offensive line of any blame. But I don't think they deserve all of the blame. Okay,
Yeah.
so what else can it be? Purdy is holding on to the ball too long. He has
Yep.
the 9th slowest time to throw through the first 2 weeks of the season. It's at 2.9 seconds right now. So he has time to go through his progressions and find an open man. That's a positive. He's not pulling the trigger though. That's a negative. And I think one thing that I tried to throw out there is the separation thing. And people are running away with this narrative. I want to make things clear here that the average separation is on the throws of Brock Purdy. So he's throwing into tight windows, right? It's 2.9 yards average separation for the receivers that he's targeting. So that doesn't mean that the guys are not getting open. It could mean that someone's running open underneath and Brock Purdy's throwing it to the guy that has like 1 yard of separation. Like he's throwing it into a tight window. That could be someone open underneath that Brock didn't throw it to. And there were times where I did see that in this game. And I do have to say, like, I like Brock's aggressiveness. I think we've come to appreciate that for him. It was one of the glaring differences between him and Jimmy Garoppolo, but I do think there is a time and a place for it. And I felt like there were some key moments in this game where it wasn't necessary to make the difficult throw that has a lesser chance of being completed than maybe like a check down, for example. And Jordan Mason, I want Jordan Mason to be more involved in checkdowns because he only had 1 target, 4 yards. And it did move the sticks when he did get that check down, especially with Deebo out, like we've been saying. I want Jordan Mason to get the ball more. I know that if Christian McCaffrey was in this game, he'd be getting peppered with targets on those 3rd down, 4th down plays. All right. So I want Jordan Mason to get involved with that. I don't know if it's just more of a rapport thing that Brock Purdy just wasn't looking his way in those instances. I know Kyle Juszczyk was also getting involved as a check down option, which he did get some targets in this game as well. But anyway, all that to say that I think there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things to critique, as there always is in a football game, especially in a loss. And like I've been saying, it isn't just one thing. But Brock Purdy wasn't perfect in this game. There's definitely a number of things to critique with him as well as the rest of the offense.
Andre says, without CMC and checkdowns, Brock ain't getting much 3rd and shorts. Most pass plays are 2nd and 3rd and long. I think I want to dispel a narrative about CMC and checkdowns. Just walk with me real quick. The very definition of a checkdown is progression, checkdown.
Yeah.
When CMC's on the field and he gets the ball thrown to him quickly, that's not a checkdown. That is CMC being better in space against a designed defense that is attacking them or someone in space, a linebacker, whoever it is. I think a lot of people mistake CMC's catches for all checkdowns as opposed to it being designed plays because he understands and recognizes cover 3, whatever it is, sits the route down in the right spot, or there's a matchup that they want. I don't think that it's necessarily checkdowns. The very definition of a checkdown is going through all the progressions, and that's your last option. There's many times where CMC's in the backfield, and he's the number 1 option against certain defenses. So I don't think that that's necessarily that. I think when you look at the way this game was, yes, Kyle Juszczyk was the 4th option on the back end, but I just want to kind of dispel that narrative about like anytime CMC gets thrown the ball, it's a check down. No, it's they're trying to get the ball to the offensive player of the year, and they have a matchup that they like. So and to be fair, Christian McCaffrey wasn't going to save the 49ers. The 49ers weren't a Christian McCaffrey away from winning this game. Let's just make sure we keep it a band when it comes to that. I think it's very easy to look at this game and say, Brian Flores did a great job. The 49ers were looking around at each other, especially on the offensive line at times by, showing 7, dropping 3, sending 4, and the way that they were kind of bracketing Brandon Ayuk a little bit, and Brock Purdy hesitating and holding the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem. This week, right now, is we're kind of being gaslit into, well, Brock has the second most passing yards in the league. And Brock has this and Brock has that.
He's doing great. He's doing great, Jay. He has this. He leads the league in passing yards. That's what I was told.
He didn't have a good game on Sunday. It doesn't mean that Brock Purdy's bad. It doesn't mean that this will continue. It meant Brock Purdy didn't have a bad game. And stop gaslighting us into being like, well, nobody was getting open. Brock has culpability in this as well, too. Why is it so hard for some of you guys to just look in the camera or look yourselves on Twitter and say, Brock didn't play well? He didn't. The ball was out of his hand way too late. Brian Flores did a great job. But Brock didn't play well this week. But it doesn't mean that Brock's trash. It doesn't mean that this is going to continue. It doesn't mean that this is something that you need to be worried about. But if you can objectively look yourself in the mirror and say Brock Purdy had a bad game, regardless of the stats, it tells me you didn't watch the game or you probably don't know what you were looking at. I mean, he gave the football up. We give Jimmy Garoppolo all this flack for throwing the football backwards. Brock Purdy gave the football up without even throwing it. Sunday wasn't his best performance, and that's okay. But don't gaslight us into saying, well, Brock has this and Brock has that, and he's been spectacular. He's been anything but that, and especially not that on Sunday. So stop, man, please.
It was very reminiscent of the game against the Ravens last year, where it felt like something was off with him, and then he kind of tries to overcompensate for some of the mistakes he did make. So then he's trying to do too much. And look, I think both things could be true, that Brock didn't have a good game, and also Brian Flores and his defense had a hell of a day. Both things could be true. And maybe one is caused by the other a little bit, but I mean, those can be true at the same time. And I think that's one thing that people aren't really considering enough either. And look, I mean, it's okay to criticize Brock Purdy when he doesn't have a good game.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be fine.
And I've also seen people say the play calling, like, look, I would have liked Kyle Shanahan to run the ball a little bit more in this game, but when he did call some passing plays, there were plays to be made there. It just didn't happen, right? But there were guys open. So you can't really blame the play call at that point if, you're not able to convert. At that point, it's on the players. So It's not always on the play call. And so I didn't have so much of an issue with that. Again, like, we have been begging Kyle Shanahan to be more aggressive. And then when he does, it's like, oh, why didn't you do this? It's like, come on, guys. Like,
the play got blown up.
I love him being aggressive.
The play got blown out of the line. I love the aggressiveness. And someone said, let's not forget, Jason was a Trey Lance, fanboy. No, I was a Justin Fields fanboy. Let's make sure we get it right. So stop playing with my name, okay? I actually wanted Justin Fields, and Justin Fields actually plays football. Trey Lance is not on an active roster. So, let's make sure we get it right. And remember, anything that I said about Trey Lance was stop saying things with certainty when you haven't seen him play. But, keep lying. But look, all right. Let's talk about that fourth down, right? I love the play call. I love it. Twice going for it. I love that. That's the thing that I've been imploring Kyle Shanahan to do. The play gets blown up because, again, miscommunication on the line, and then it gets knocked out, but it would have been a touchdown. The problem is, on the back of that is the touchdown to Justin Jefferson. And I love Jair Brown, but Jair Brown was the one who let that happen. Now, you look at the pre-snap diagnosis and you see George Odom over him, but it's a clear bracket. George Odom is a special teamer, and he's underneath. Jair Brown is 17 yards away in single high. Jair Brown is supposed to take that away all the way up top. Now, when you're someone who doesn't have straight line speed and you let Justin Jefferson get a step on you, that's what's going to happen. So you can look at the matchup and say, well, it's not ideal to have George Odom, over him. But Jair Brown in single high, you can't let that get by you. And the idea of it was George Odom puts you underneath, and Jair Brown, you take away the top. I understand why people will say, oh, wow, Odom shouldn't have been there. Okay, fine. But Jair Brown is a bad angle, and you got to be there, man. And I think that is much more to blame. And I think the world of Jair Brown. I think he's going to be a great player. I think that's a terrible mistake, and it can't happen on the back of you getting 0 points right there on 4th and goal.
Yeah, and he knows it, right? What I was wondering watching that was like, why the referee was running faster than Jair Brown out there. Man had wheels, but yeah, obviously not Jair Brown's greatest play. And he knows it. Like he knows it. I was confused as well why George Odom was lined up across Justin Jefferson. That's not something I would do personally. I also saw Nick Bosa drop into coverage, and he was on Justin Jefferson as well.
Love that.
So there were just, there was things on defense that there were miscues, right? And there was weird miscommunications. I know on the touchdown to Jalen Naylor, Mooney Ward said he thought it was a run play, mostly because how he was lined up. But then
that's a miscommunication.
Yeah. So yeah, there was just weird things on defense too. And I think Kevin O'Connell's a great coach, and
he is.
Sam Darnold, like we said, he was throwing some seeds out there. I fear. He looked good. But yeah, I can't. Again, like I don't think you could blame the defense for the loss, but I also think there's things you can critique, and I see people like poking fun and saying, "Oh, did Brock Purdy like give up the 97-yard touchdown?" Like, no.
Did I blame Brock Purdy? But did I blame Brock Purdy altogether? Like I just said, he didn't play well.
And that's what I'm saying. Like people are acting like if you critique one thing, you are blaming the entire loss on that one thing. Like we have pointed out so many things in this game that have gone
and we haven't
wrong,
even got to everything that has been wrong. Like we're still talking through it.
We literally opened the show saying like the 49ers almost had a try to lose this game. There are just so many things that happened that led to this loss. So no, we're not putting it all on Purdy. We're not putting it all on the defense. We're not putting it all on Brennan Ayuk. We're not putting it all on Trent Williams. Like, stop it with that. And stop projecting what you feel, because everyone, like I said, people want to blame one thing. It's not one thing. And so when you critique something else that they're not blaming, I don't know, people just get angry and upset, and I don't know. But
it takes a village to raise a kid. It took an entire team to be that shitty on Sunday.
Jay,
and that's good.
I was just sorry to interrupt your thought.
You're good. That was my thought. Look, it takes a village to raise a kid. It takes an entire team to be that shitty in one football game. An entire team.
Yeah.
That's it.
Can we talk about the third down defense though?
Sure.
Because that's to me, like that's a concern, because that's something that goes back to last season, right? And that was an issue then. First 2 weeks of the season, it's been an issue. They're 31st in third down conversion rate allowed through 2 weeks. Only the Washington Commanders are worse. That's not the company you want to be in through the first 2 weeks of the season. And so this defense has to be better. I think, after week 1, we felt good about Nick Sorensen, some of the adjustments he made. I think looking on this week 2 game, like there's more adjustments he can make, right? Like it's all a learning experience. But the third down defense has to be better.
Yeah, so think about this sequence. Aaron Jones is about to score and put the Vikings up big. And God bless Fred Warner's soul, because he was the only one who was, it seemed like it was him, Jordan Mason, and George Kittle. I think those are the 3 that I could look at that I know for a fact they were hooping. Think about that, right? Think about Fred Warner knocking that out, right? And then how the cascading effect of that kind of just puts them back in a spot. And then the 49ers go down 98 yards, touchdown. When you absolutely need it. It was absolutely desperate. 98 yards, you go down and you go down and you score. And then on that third down, Yadam is chasing Naylor, and he's nowhere near in the picture, and the ball's thrown perfectly. You got to get off the field right there. And that essentially lost the game. Look, the 49ers winning this game on Sunday would have been quite literally them snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. I don't think going into that fourth quarter, they even deserve to be in the conversation to win the game.
Exactly.
Right. But Fred Warner was doing everything that he could. And again, special teams sucked. Defense on third down, trash. Defensive line, Nick Bosa, yeah, thank you for the 2 sacks. Leonard Floyd, not existent.
He was getting thrown around. He was getting tossed.
And
tossed at the club.
And Javon Hargrave, thank you for the intentional grounding penalty that turned into the gross models thing. But the interior O-line has been objectively awful for the Vikings. Where are you? Where are you? Javon Hargrave, I don't pocket watch. I think you're an exceptional football player. I need you to do more. Please. And that's the part. It's defensive line. It's secondary, miscommunications. I'm not going to say anything bad about linebackers because Fred Warner's a shining star. It's offensive line, miscommunications. It's Brock Purdy holding the ball too long. It's special teams. All of these things are how you lose to not only the Minnesota Vikings, any NFL team that would have laced them up and went against you. Maybe the Panthers would have been the one team that you could get away from. It's not time to panic. It's not time to go crazy. But we're just talking about week 2. And this is what we saw in week 2. Dazzler says fans killed Wilkes for the big play last year where Ward had the ball ripped out of his hands, yet Sorensen gets a pass, letting JJ go for 97 yards.
I take this one.
Yeah, you got it. Why wasn't Ward on JJ? The floor is yours, Steph.
Well, no, I'm going to just say, because I've seen so many people say this, and for one, it's week 2. When that play happened with Wilkes, it was week 7, and it was several weeks of kind of seeing, this defense underperform. So at that point, that was kind of like the thing that broke the camel's back.
The straw. Look, the camel's carrying a lot of straws, so don't add more straws to the camel.
Yeah, so that was the final straw for the camel to break its back in week 7 last season. And mind you, also there was a lot of other things I think going on in the background that we weren't privy to at that point. Steve Wilkes was calling plays from up top. He wasn't on the field. That was a big thing. That's when he got switched over down. So there was a lot more going on there by week 7. If week 7, there's something similar that happens for Nick Sorensen, and in addition to that, there's a lot of other background things with Nick Sorensen happening with this, defense, and people are saying things like, don't forget, Nick Bosa, said, what did he say? I'm pretty sure it was after the Vikings game in week 7. I'm just doing things.
We're still trying,
I'm not
and we're trying to
doing.
we're trying to figure things out. Yeah,
that's not good.
There
was so much wrong there. So to make this anti-Steve Wilkes or making it seem like people are anti-Steve Wilkes and Sorensen is getting the pass is inaccurate. It's week 2. So let's give Sorensen a shot, just like in week 2, we were giving Steve Wilkes a shot, right? So we are keeping the same energy. We are. So it's just not the same week, not the same point of the season.
And Steve Wilkes is a decorated NFL coach, and he has been a defensive coordinator, and he's been a head coach at times, a little bit different, right? Nick Sorensen is someone who is getting into this job right now, right?
First time.
I'm old enough to remember you got to get rid of Robert Saleh too. I'm old enough to remember you got to get rid of DeMeco Ryans. It's fine. It's fine. It's week 2. What we're doing on this podcast, and I want to reiterate it one more time because I feel like someone's going to watch this and they're going to clip a part of me saying something and they're just going to say, oh my God, he's panicked. I am not panicked. I am not panicked. It is week 2. There are 15 more games for the San Francisco 49ers to play. They have a track record of winning games, especially when it matters. Obviously not the Super Bowl, guys, but getting it done in November and December, right? I am not panicked. This team is going to be fine, regardless. Things get rough in the NFL. There's ebbs and flows. There's peaks and valleys. But we are simply analyzing what happened on Sunday in week 2, and we can look around and say, top to bottom, aside from Fred Warner, not you, Jordan Mason, not you, George Kittle, not you, Brandon Ayuk, top to bottom, that team didn't perform well. And that's all we're doing. If objective analysis of a game bothers you, then you possibly can't understand trying to talk about losses in the NFL, because it's going to be. I have another spoiler alert. The 49ers are going to lose another game, probably 2, maybe 3. And we're going to sit here and try to wonder why. Don't panic on the season, but objectively look at this game and just say the 49ers played like shit, top to bottom. That's the easiest part of this one. Everyone's like, how do you explain this? Here's how you explain it. When you have that many miscommunications, when you have that many turnovers, when you have that many mistakes, when you have coaching and you have those plays, that's it. That's it. It doesn't have to be a sweeping statement, but we are talking about week 2. And if you have an issue with anyone saying that the 49ers played like shit on Sunday, that's a you problem. We got a few more super chats here too, Rob, if you want to throw them up. More so than covering JJ with 2 safeties, Sorensen and Staley was unable to get Donald off the field in the fourth quarter. 60% third down conversion is a problem. 100%. 100%. Block punts, not getting off on third down, being confused and miscommunications on the offensive line, being confused and miscommunications in the secondary. That's how you lose football games. Cynthia says, I think it's reasonable to expect the DC to put best on best, though. Not putting our best CB on Justin Jefferson was a head scratcher for me. Charvarius Ward after the game said, I feel like I'm best when I follow the best receiver. Now, he said, obviously, that's not what the game plan is. I get that part. We're not in the defensive room. We're not. We don't know what they're thinking, right? And they get paid to make those decisions. And you hope that they have something in mind that works. But I think, yeah, there's bracketing that works. And there was times in this game where Charvarius was bracketing and Jair was over the top. And it worked. You weren't able to get the ball to Justin Jefferson. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like he's going to get his regardless.
It's almost like he's the best.
Right. It's almost like Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in football. It's almost like he's paid that way because he's done things in this league that nobody's been able to do ever, right? In his first few years. So he's gonna get his. It's just at that time with that throw, it was a mix-up of an absolute dime from Sam Darnold, 50 yards in the air, and them getting the matchup that they wanted, and Jair Brown taking a poor angle. And all those things lead to that. It's tough. You can't shut down Justin Jefferson. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So, yeah, look. Again, we are just talking about week 2. That's it. Do I think the 49ers now all of a sudden should jump out the window and burn it all down? No. Do things feel great? No. But it's week 2. And if the 49ers go out there and they blitz the Rams in week 3, and then we get to the end of the season, we all sit back and we look back at this game and laugh, that's kind of where we are. And I think that's the way you should be viewing this. It's not something that you brush off because you're just like, oh, whatever. I'm not brushing it off. They made mistakes, and it's concerning. But for the most part, I'm not worried about this team because they have shown us year after year that they find a way to get it done. And that I think that's the way that you stop from panicking in this one stuff.
Yeah, and through the first 2 weeks of the season, it's just been weird around the NFL, especially the NFC.
Mhm,
Like, you mentioned some of the teams that are 0-2 that are surprises, and yeah, there's a few of them, right? And you look at the top teams of the NFC going into this season, the Niners, the Lions, the Packers, they're all 1-1, you
mhm.
know? So that's another reason to not panic. Sure, if you want to throw the Eagles, Cowboys in there too. Um,
Ha 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 ha.
but also you look at the teams that are like 2-0, like the in the NFC, and that's surprising as well, right? So you got the
Yeah,
Bucks, you got the Seahawks, a couple other teams. Um, I think things will balance out
yeah,
just like they always do,
yeah,
because and that's why I'm not panicking, right?
yeah.
I think good teams will prevail. I remember the season that what was it, like 2 seasons ago, where the Eagles were like undefeated for however
Mhm,
long in the season, and
mhm,
we weren't buying it. We are like, things are gonna balance out. Like,
mhm,
ball don't lie. Eventually, think the shoe's gonna drop. It did, right? So, alternatively, how I'm looking at the 49ers, like, yes, this is one game.
mhm,
I'm not panicking for that reason, because I think the 49ers are still one of the best teams in the NFL, and there's no
mhm,
reason that they shouldn't be,
mhm.
um, getting things right at a certain point. So I'm not too worried about it. And quite honestly, like, you look at the Rams this week, and maybe that's a good segue to this Rams game coming up, and just like the next
Steph,
couple
don't
weeks.
say it. Don't say it. Don't say like
What
never a
am I gonna
doubt or
say?
anything like that, or just like
What am I gonna say?
I know, or just don't be confident in the 49ers. Like I think that's the biggest complaint that we always get is like, yeah, like we think the 49ers are gonna win this game. Yeah, silly us for thinking that,
Yeah, why
Kyle
would we
Shanahan,
think
yeah,
this?
yeah, why would we think that a team
Why
that
would we
is
think that?
supremely talented has a chance to win a game? Like that just go ahead.
We're
You got
so
it, bro.
biased. We're
We're
so
so
biased with
biased.
that.
Yeah. My bad. My bad for thinking that the 49ers were going to beat a Vikings team that is inferior to them. My bad that I think that the 49ers are probably going to beat the Rams, who are the walking wounded. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like, that's the point, right? Like, the 49ers are playing a team that is way more injured than them. Like, they are
Yes.
hurting right now. Obviously, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp set to miss a couple of weeks, including this next game coming up. They're missing a couple of offensive linemen. Um, they're
Safety
also
corner.
shoot, man, it's bad out there. It's bad. So whenever you look
Yes.
at the 49ers situation and you think to yourself, man, it could be worse, that worse is the Rams. So
Yeah.
if there is a get right game for the 49ers, I would say it is this one.
Mm-hmm.
They're converting less third downs on offense than the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to be able to run the ball, this is the team to do it against. Control the clock and the flow of this game. The Rams are giving up 30th most rushing yards per game, nearly 200 per game,
Mm-hmm.
197 yards. So, hey, how about Jordan Mason, man? Just an idea. Maybe use him a little bit more in this game, because, like I said, he's shown that he can handle it. And if you want to just get through these next couple of games without two of your most important guys on offense, I think running the ball and doing it effectively is going to help to that. And I have to say, like, I've been pleased with the rushing lanes that have been created for Jordan Mason.
Mm-hmm.
And just like on a very short sidebar here, Isaac Rendo had one carry in this game.
And
Young
he
man,
literally got sent
young
out. He got
man,
sent away. He got sent
just
away. Just follow your block.
young man.
Just
Yeah,
follow
follow
your
Trent
block.
Williams.
Follow Trent.
That
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
easiest
Yeah. Yeah.
job in
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
just follow Trent. It
Yeah.
was there.
And
Just have a
Kyle
little
was
more patience.
furious. He just said, "That's it.
Oh,
Enough.
dude.
I've seen enough."
I-
Um. Look, and kind of just real quick before we get back into the Rams, I just want to talk about the fourth and goal play call. I don't know more than Kyle Shanahan, but when you need a yard and then you go in a shotgun, you're going back 4 yards to get one, and then you have to throw the football. I mean, I would have been fine with handing the football off under center to Jordan Mason and just trying to see if he gets there. If he gets there, he doesn't. Whatever. I didn't love that play call. I love the aggressiveness. I didn't love that play call. Dazzler says also when you're in the red zone, why not use BA and Kittle in particular? They tried. Brock held the ball a little bit too long.
it was
And then Kittle
yeah,
scored.
it
Kittle
was
scored on the
open.
screen. Looks like we're struggling in the red zone without CMC. Yeah, a little bit too cute, kind of like just a little bit too cute. But I did want to kind of point something out before we get back to the Rams, and that's where we're gonna go because I know we got maybe like 10, 12 minutes. The only time that the 49ers have really run through September and October is 2019 when they started, 8-0 before they lost their first game in November to Seattle on Monday Night Football. Even looking like going into 2020, which is a year we don't remember because for me that never happened because of everything with COVID. But even like looking into 2021, the 49ers win week 1 barely against the Lions. That game was really crazy at the end. They beat the Eagles 17-11. They lose to the Packers at home. They lose to Seattle the next week. They lose to the Cardinals the next week. They lose to the Colts that next week. They lost 4 straight games in 2021. We're the worst team. When you go into 2022, you start to look at it and you say, okay, Niners lose to the Bears in week 1 with Trey Lance. They beat the brakes off the Seattle Seahawks. They lose 11-10 to the Broncos. They lose 28-14 in Atlanta. I was at that game. So many of these games. And again, those are worse teams. Those are flat out worse teams than they are right now. The 49ers have never really, outside of 2019, gotten off to a start where they're just rolling through everybody. Last year they did too. That helps. Last year they just won a bunch of games. But I have a hard time being scared about a game that they lost and they're going to lose more games when there's such a track record of them being so good at the end of this. But yeah, I'm with you, Steph. They better beat the hell out of the Rams, or now that's when we'll have to have a much bigger discussion, I think.
They'll have real problems if they can't get past the Rams, bro.
Yeah. So like the Rams, right? No offensive line, obviously no Kupp, no Nakua. Remember the 49ers lost to the Cardinals with Colt McCoy. There is any given Sunday. And that's kind of the lesson that we just got on Sunday was any given Sunday. But if the 49ers don't find a way to win this game, I don't care what fashion they win it in. If it's a dogfight, I wouldn't be too surprised because it's a divisional rival and that's just kind of how it is. And Matthew Stafford has the ability to make things happen with his arm. But if they don't win this game, then we got to really, really, really talk about some other things. And I think that would be far more concerning than a loss to the Minnesota Vikings on a short week across the country in a game which they played completely mistake-filled football.
I agree. And, I mean, it's going to be a home game for the Niners, right? I mean, in LA.
Yep.
You know how to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's good. I like it.
So I guess my question is, do we see Hufanga in this game? Because it seems like he's trending towards returning. Like every week, it seems like he's a little bit closer, right? This week, I think they'd want to get him in there. I think they know like George Odom. Like maybe they could get past the Rams with George Odom in there, but I still think they want to get Hufanga out there. But it is a turf game, right? So do you want to have his first game back on turf? I still think they'll probably take it easy on him and probably wait till the following week to bring him back if I had to guess. But that return is near. And I always say, like, I remind people that return to play doesn't mean return to performance. So it's yet to be seen what Hufanga's going to look like.
Right.
But obviously having him back is going to feel like a big boost. And hopefully he could be that same guy because I think it is going to help this defense.
All right. Not to be combative, but is the fix just having Hufanga out there?
No, I mean, absolutely not. Just like we say that there's so many things that lead to a loss, there isn't one thing that can lead to a win either. So Hufanga's not going to be that game changer for them. I'm just saying it'll help, I think. If he's the same guy.
Well,
if he's the same guy.
Talent-wise, regardless of whatever shape Hufanga's in, he's better than George Odom, right? Like I think we can lay that out. But I don't think it's as simple as just Hufanga's back, everything's gonna be fine as safety.
No,
some of those same miscommunications that happened with with Mooney, like that happens with Hufanga, where he's a little bit too far up and someone gets behind him. He doesn't have the straight line speed. Obviously, ball hawk, he gets to the ball. We get it. All pro. We get it. But I think that's an oversimplification to just say Hufanga is going to get back and everything's going to be fine at the safety spot. I'm not predicting that he's going to be bad. I'm not predicting that. but I think that's an oversimplification, and I think that's a way to kind of downplay all of the other stuff that's kind of going on with whatever the calls are and where you're positioned and everything, right? So, sure, I will absolutely take Hufanga back because he's better than George Odom, and George Odom is more of a special teamer than anything. But I think it's a bit of an oversimplification to just say, yeah, you know what, Huff is back, we're fine. I think there's other things that they have to figure out and fix, and perhaps it's a 1 week thing, because we didn't see any of it. Really, I mean, Jair Brown gets burned for the touchdown with Alan Lazard on Monday Night Football against the Jets. I would like to see what it looks like, but I'm not going to sit here and just say that that's like the Band-Aid and the end all be all that's going to like make this secondary or in particular the safeties look better.
Yeah, I agree. But in any case, like week 2, we're seeing it as a get right game for the 49ers. I know
Yeah.
there's like we said, there's going to need to be some adjustments on the offensive side of the ball. You're missing
Mhm.
2 key guys. But hopefully that means more opportunities for Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Jordan Mason.
I have my prediction. Niners 375, Rams 13. There you go. You guys feel good about that? That's a reference from that SNL sketch. Bears 275, Giants 7. Go Bears, the Bears. All right, let's get out of here, Steph. Look, guys, thank you guys for tapping in. I know I yelled, I know I cursed and everything. Everything's gonna be fine. Like, just remember that everything's going to be fine. But make sure you guys are liked and subscribed to the Gold Standard Podcast Network YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcasts. Follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte2103. And everything's going to be fine. Okay, guys? And, we both have YouTube channels if you want to check that out as well, too. Steph does some great work on there. I yell into a camera and everything, and I'm completely irrational. So, but for Steph, for Jay, we're out of here.
Peace.